My mother-in-law slid the papers across the table with a sweet smile. Just sign here, Diana. It's just a formality. Family helps family. They wanted $85,000 from the inheritance my grandmother left me. The grandmother they mocked for being just a maid. What none of them saw was the extra clause I wrote in microscopic print at the bottom. The notary's face went pale when she read it out loud. Before we dive deeper into this story, make sure you hit subscribe, like, and share, because what happens next will leave you absolutely speechless. The conference room at Henderson and Associates law firm smelled like expensive leather and betrayal. I sat at the polished mahogany table, surrounded by my husband's entire family, all of them looking at me like I was an ATM machine that had finally agreed to dispense. My husband, Marcus, squeezed my hand under the table. I thought it was for support. Later, I'd realize it was to keep me from running. Diana, sweetheart, my mother-in-law, Patricia, began in that honeyed voice she reserved for manipulation. We've been over this. The family is in a tight spot. Your grandmother's inheritance, God rest her soul, could really help us all. God rest her soul. The same woman Patricia had called the help at our wedding rehearsal dinner. The same woman whose 40 years of cleaning other people's homes had somehow managed to save $85,000 for me. The same woman who raised me alone after my parents died, who worked 3 jobs so I could go to college, who never once made me feel like I was anything less than royalty. It's not charity, Marcus's brother, Trevor, chimed in, leaning back in his chair with that entitled smirk I'd grown to despise. It's a loan. We'll pay you back once the real estate development takes off. Real estate development. That's what they were calling it. The truth was, Trevor had gotten involved with some shady investment group promising to flip foreclosed homes in Detroit. The same Trevor who'd never held a job for more than 6 months, who'd borrowed $15,000 from his parents 3 years ago that was never mentioned again, who drove a BMW he couldn't afford and wore designer suits to hide the fact that he was drowning in credit card debt. The paperwork is simple, Patricia continued, sliding the document closer to me. Just a family loan agreement. Nothing complicated. I stared at the papers. Standard loan agreement. $85,000 to be paid to the Henderson Family Trust for investment purposes. No interest rate listed. No payment schedule. No collateral. Just a blank line for my signature at the bottom. What's the repayment timeline? I asked quietly. Patricia waved her hand dismissively. We can figure that out later. This is family, Diana. We don't need to be so formal. When's later? Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside me. Babe, don't overthink this. They just need help right now. We'll work out the details. We. He kept saying we, like this was a joint decision. Like the money his deceased grandmother-in-law saved while scrubbing toilets somehow belonged to him too. I looked around the table. Trevor, scrolling through his phone, already bored with the conversation. Patricia, maintaining that patient smile that barely concealed her irritation at my questions. Marcus's father, Gerald, silent as always, just nodding along with whatever Patricia decided. And Marcus, my husband of 3 years, avoiding my eyes. Not one of them had come to my grandmother's funeral. Not one. Can I have a moment to read through this? I asked. Of course, Patricia said too brightly. Take all the time you need. I picked up the document and started reading. Standard boilerplate language about loans and agreements. But there was something missing. Something crucial. There was no clause protecting me if they defaulted. No consequence for non-payment. This wasn't a loan agreement. This was a permission slip to steal $85,000 with a smile. My hands shook slightly as I set the papers down. I'd like to make a small addition. The room went silent. An addition? Patricia's smile tightened. Just a clarification. About the terms. Trevor finally looked up from his phone. What kind of clarification? I pulled a pen from my purse. My grandmother's pen, actually. The silver one with her initials engraved on the side that she'd received after 25 years of service from the Morrison family. The family she'd cleaned for, who'd treated her with more respect than my husband's family ever had. Just standard loan language, I said calmly. If this is a real loan, we should have real terms. Marcus leaned over. Diana, come on. You're making this awkward. Awkward. That was his word for me standing up for myself. Everything was always awkward when I didn't immediately comply. I ignored him and started writing in the tiny space at the bottom of the document, just above the signature line. My handwriting was small, neat, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. The notary, a middle-aged woman named Sandra who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, leaned forward to watch. "What are you writing?" Patricia asked, her voice sharp now. "Just clarifying the terms," I repeated. "This loan of $85,000 is to be repaid within 24 months from the date of signing, with 8% annual interest compounded monthly. In the event of default, all personal assets of the borrowers, including but not limited to real estate holdings, vehicles, and investment accounts, will be subject to immediate liquidation to satisfy the debt. Furthermore, this agreement supersedes any and all claims to my inheritance, past, present, or future." The silence that followed was deafening. "You can't," Trevor started. "It's a loan agreement," I said simply. "These are standard terms. If you're planning to pay me back anyway, this shouldn't be a problem." Patricia's face had gone from sweet to stone. "Diana, this is family. We don't need these kinds of stipulations." "Then maybe it shouldn't be called a loan." Marcus grabbed my arm. "Can we talk outside?" "No." I pulled my arm away gently but firmly. "If this is important enough to require a notary and a law office, it's important enough to have proper terms." Gerald finally spoke. "This is insulting." "What's insulting?" I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Is asking me to hand over my grandmother's life savings with nothing but a promise. The same grandmother you all made fun of. The same woman who worked herself to exhaustion so I could have a better life. If you want her money, you'll respect it with real terms." "We're not signing that," Trevor said flatly. "Then I'm not signing this." I pushed the papers back across the table and stood up. For a moment, nobody moved. They were so used to me being quiet, accommodating, the dutiful daughter-in-law who brought homemade desserts to Sunday dinners and laughed at Gerald's bad jokes and never complained when Patricia rearranged my kitchen cabinets because she was just trying to help. They'd mistaken kindness for weakness. "Diana," Marcus said, standing up, his voice taking on that pleading tone. "Please, just think about this." "I have thought about it. For 3 weeks, actually. Ever since you first mentioned this investment opportunity. The family needs this." "The family," I said, looking directly at Patricia, "has needed a lot of things from me over the years. They needed me to host Thanksgiving when Patricia's kitchen was being renovated. They needed me to loan Trevor $500 for car repairs that I never saw again. They needed me to lie to your aunt about why you all couldn't make it to her birthday party." Marcus's face reddened. "That's not fair. What's not fair is expecting me to hand over everything my grandmother worked for, because you call it family." Patricia stood up, her composure cracking. "If you don't want to help this family, Diana, maybe you're not the right fit for it." The threat hung in the air like smoke. "Maybe I'm not," I said quietly. I turned to Sandra, the notary. "Thank you for your time. I won't be signing today." As I walked toward the door, Marcus called out, "Where are you going?" I paused, my hand on the doorknob. "Home. To my apartment. The one I had before we got married. The one I never sold because something told me to keep it. I'll be staying there for a while." "You're leaving me?" I turned back to face him. "No, Marcus. I'm leaving them. If you want to come with me, you know where to find me. But if you stay in this room, if you let them pressure me and guilt me and try to steal from me, then you're choosing them. And I won't be there when you're done." I walked out before he could respond. The elevator ride down felt like the longest 60 seconds of my life. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding, but underneath it all was something I hadn't felt in 3 years, freedom. When I reached my car, I sat in the driver's seat and finally let myself breathe. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text after text. Missed calls. Voicemails. I turned it off. That night, I slept in my old apartment, the one bedroom in Brooklyn that I'd rented out to a friend for the past 3 years. She'd just moved out last month, and I'd been planning to sell it. Now, I understood why I'd hesitated. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls. I listened to exactly one voicemail. It was from Marcus, his voice broken. "Diana, please. They're furious. They're saying terrible things. My mom wants me to file for divorce. Please come back. We can figure this out." I deleted it. 3 days passed. I went to work, came home, and started the process I should have started years ago, protecting myself. I called a divorce lawyer. I changed my bank accounts. I updated my will, making sure that if anything happened to me, every penny of my grandmother's inheritance went to the scholarship fund she'd wanted to create for housekeeping staff to attend college. On the 4th day, my phone rang from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mrs. Henderson?" Speaking. This is Sandra, the notary from Henderson and Associates. I hope you don't mind, but I got your number from the office files. Is something wrong? No, I wanted to tell you something. After you left, I refused to notarize their document. I sat up straighter. Why? Because what you wrote at the bottom was right. It was the only part of that agreement that was legally sound. Everything else was a trap. I've been a notary for 20 years, and I've seen families destroy each other over money. What you did, standing up for yourself like that, I've never seen someone do it so calmly. My throat tightened. Thank you. There's something else. Your mother-in-law tried to have me notarize a different version without your additions. I refused. Then she tried to forge your signature. My blood ran cold. What? I reported it to the firm. She's being investigated for fraud. I thought you should know. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. They'd tried to forge my signature. They'd actually tried to steal from me. 2 weeks later, Marcus showed up at my apartment. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, defeated. Can we talk? He asked. I let him in. We sat at my small kitchen table, the one my grandmother had given me when I moved into my first apartment. Marcus stared at his hands. They're bankrupt, he said finally. Trevor's investment was a scam. They lost everything they put in. My parents had to sell their house. I didn't say anything. My mom's being charged with attempted fraud because she tried to forge your signature on a different loan agreement. I know. He looked up, surprised. You know, the notary called me. Why didn't you? He stopped himself. Of course you didn't. Why would you? Marcus, did you know? About the forgery? He shook his head quickly. No. God, no. But I should have protected you from them. I should have stood up for you from the beginning. Instead, his voice broke. I chose them. And I lost you. You did. Is there any chance? No. The word hung between us. I loved you, I continued. But you let them treat me like an ATM. You let them mock my grandmother. You sat there while they tried to steal from me. Love isn't enough when there's no respect. He nodded slowly, tears running down his face. I know. I'm sorry, Diana. For all of it. After he left, I made myself tea in my grandmother's old mug, the one with the faded flowers on the side. I thought about her, working so hard for so many years, saving every dollar she could spare. She'd done it all so I'd have choices. So I'd never have to depend on anyone who didn't value me. So I'd never have to scrub toilets while people looked down on me. And I'd almost given it all away. 6 months later, I used part of the inheritance to start the Grandmother's Legacy Foundation, offering full-ride scholarships to children of domestic workers who wanted to pursue higher education. The first recipient was a girl named Maria, whose mother cleaned office buildings at night and took care of her 3 kids during the day. At the scholarship ceremony, Maria gave a speech. My mom always said that education is the one thing no one can take from you. Thanks to this foundation, thanks to Diana's grandmother, I get to prove her right. I thought about the conference room, about Patricia's sweet smile, and the papers sliding across the table. I thought about the microscopic print I'd added at the bottom, the clause that had changed everything. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is write your own terms. And sometimes the best inheritance isn't money at all. It's knowing your worth.